Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Gambling Did You Know session. We're going to jump right in today. Today, we are talking about gambling among older adults, and is there a risk there? Is there a risk for problem gambling, specifically among older adults and veterans as well? So we're going to be talking about kind of a wide range of topics. So if you know anybody who's a little bit older and maybe a veteran as well, you might have some more information by the end of today's session that you can kind of share with them as well. So a little bit of background information around gambling and this age group. We have, first off, I think this is an important statistic here that adults actually 65 years old and older are the fastest group of growing group of gamblers. That doesn't mean that they are the highest amount of gamblers at this time in terms of people actually gambling, but they're growing at the fastest rate. So over time, they may become more and more likely to gamble, and the largest proportion might be coming from this population in the future. We also have the one poll found as many as 70% of seniors had actually gambled in the past year. So that's a large number of seniors. If you have grandparents or anything like that, parents as well in this age group, a large amount of them are gambling, and you might not even know it. That's not necessarily a problem, but then when we get to these other two statistics, this is where we're starting to actually see gambling problems. So as many as 10% of people over the age of 65 are actually at risk of financial problems due to their gambling. And we also know that gambling doesn't just cause financial problems. So there might be even more people who maybe they aren't at risk for financial problems, but maybe it's affecting them in other parts of their life in a negative way. And 8 to 10% of people who gamble in this age group do have some level of addiction or dependence. So, that basically means that they have a compulsive need. They feel like they can't go without gambling. They have to gamble even if they don't necessarily want to. So why do older adults gamble, or why, are we talking about this today? I think it's important to first realize that, they're humans. They gamble just like, any other age group that we're talking about. But specifically this population, there's a couple key points. So first off, social interaction. That's really one of the major reasons why someone is gambling at this age. And that is because a lot of people in this age group don't get that social interaction in other ways. Maybe they're not seeing their younger family members, maybe, their spouse or other brothers, sisters, things like that. Maybe they have died actually in recent years, or maybe they just aren't around anymore for them to actually contact. So, they have limited social interaction as it is. So gambling can kind of fill that void and bring back some of that social interaction, as well as excitement. Just like any other age group, they might have, dreams of winning big or something like that. Gambling is always going to have that draw for many people there. Entertainment, this kind of goes hand in hand with those a little bit, but even if you think about it, again, when they aren't necessarily, this age group isn't necessarily being as active as other age groups, maybe even going, to the store to buy lotto tickets or scratch offs, or going to the casino, that can be kind of seen as a bigger prize in a way, or a bigger experience than some other populations might view it as. So it can be a little bit more entertaining for this age group. And finally, they do also have generally a little bit more time available. So usually someone who's 65 and older, they're not going to be working, at least not working as much. So they might have more time available for gambling. That also kind of means they could have more money available if they, have already paid down their house or whatever their living conditions are. That also, though, since they don't have a lot of income necessarily, that can be kind of one of the problems here as well that we're talking about. So these are just some of the reasons why older adults gamble. Again, it's common among any age group that we're talking about, but some of these are specific to that population specifically. And then again, what makes this group different from other groups? A couple things here. So older adults are more likely to, need more medication or need medication in general as compared to other age groups. They again may be unable to work, or they may not have that income. So that's a challenge as well. A lot of times, unfortunately, they are increasingly confined and isolated again from family members and friends. Maybe they don't have as many living relatives and things like that, or they're just confined and isolated in some way where they aren't in contact with them as much. And generally, which this last one I think we can probably all agree with, generally, people in this age group don't like to be told what to do, right? So they've been adults for many years. They've lived this long. They know what they're doing, things like that. So that's kind of a common theme that we hear a lot of times when we're talking about gambling. And maybe a person in middle age is worried about their parents or something like that. That's something that we're finding a lot of times is they just feel like they can't have that conversation with their parents or their grandparents, things like that. So one thing I do want to mention is that older adults and seniors, they are actually targeted by casinos and other gambling corporations and things like that as well. So it's important to realize, because while going to the casino might be like a fun trip, they're actually being influenced and targeted to come there, to spend time, to spend money, and that can just set them up for a dangerous cycle of sorts. So casinos, for example, will try to entice specifically this population with things like free bus trips or transportation to the casino and from the casino, maybe to wherever they're living, whether it's assisted living or something like that. They still offer free meals or free drinks, just like with any age group, but this can be one of the draws or one of the factors bringing in seniors. They also might offer discounts on hotel accommodations. Actually, some casinos also provide things like oxygen or places for people to dispose of, things like diabetic needles and other medication assisted things as well. And then they also might offer, just that friendly touch in a way. So some casinos actually send out things like birthday cards and "we miss you" cards, like "come on back to the casino. We noticed you haven't been here in a little bit." So that's actually, again, a major draw for seniors, because they are, again, isolated a lot of times. They may not have many people, or they may not feel like they have many people who care about them. And when, even something as simple as getting a card in the mail like that, that can just kind of motivate them and, inspire them to go to the casino again. So I do want to talk again briefly about the veteran population. I mentioned that at the start here, but veterans specifically within this age group and other age groups as well, they are more likely, unfortunately, to experience gambling problems than the general population. And again, there's a number of reasons for this, just a couple examples here. So first off, using gambling as a coping mechanism or to escape. This is something that we see among seniors. This is something that we see among veterans of any age group as well. So unfortunately, and oftentimes, if a person has been in active duty, they see a lot of things that most of us, of the general population don't see. They have to deal with a lot of difficulty, a lot of problems. So when they return, it can be, difficult to deal with things. So they might reach out, or they might try to cope with everything they saw, everything that they experienced through things like substance use or gambling. While that's not, the most recommended way to deal with things, it may feel like it's their only option. So that's one major reason why veterans and seniors as well are more likely to experience these problems than the general population, as well as the access. So there are actually about 3,000 slot machines on military bases, and these number of slot machines generate about $100 million per year. So that shows that, people who are on active duty, again, they are able to use these slot machines, and they do use these. So when they do return to the States, they may, just continue going to casinos and things like that. And once again, that can start a cycle of gambling problems. And finally, gambling being viewed as entertainment or even bonding among active duty military. Again, once you remove the person from active duty, that's not necessarily going to go away. They're going to still view it as, entertainment. They're going to view it as a way to bond with people. And that is going to, again, potentially set them up for problems in the future. So this is specifically for, again, the veteran population, but it can be kind of put with seniors as well a lot of times. So a couple things, I do want to share some signs for gambling addiction, gambling problems in seniors. You could also find these among the veteran population as well. So one thing to note is that unfortunately, gambling is viewed as the hidden addiction. It's easy a lot of times for someone to hide their problems. And, it's not recommended, obviously, that a person does that because we can deal with it easier when the problem isn't as big, right? So unfortunately, a lot of people do hide this problem from their friends and their family for many years. And, here are some signs, though, that you can try to find if someone who is a little bit older or who is potentially experiencing these problems. So, appearing withdrawn or being frequently unavailable for whatever reason, you don't have a great reason for being that way, or you don't know a reason why that person is not available. That could be a sign, as well as being vague about, describing what they do on a daily basis. Or maybe you go gambling with this person and it seems like they're unable to set time or spending limits. Maybe they've sold off valuable possessions, or, there's some, unexplained reason for doing that. Sometimes, you just want to get rid of something. Other times it's maybe something that they really care about. There's not necessarily a need for that, as far as to sell it off. But they're still doing that. So that could kind of lead to you figuring out that they are having financial problems. And then when a person is talking about, a lot of exciting wins, but not discussing their losses, that's kind of a red flag as well. And finally, using retirement funds or any kind of funds like that, or savings for gambling purposes, that is definitely something that is not recommended and can be a big sign of gambling problems as well. So one more thing to note before we wrap up here a little bit, the senior population is growing. So the number of older adults, again, participating in gambling is expected to rise. They are the fastest growing group of gamblers. And by 2030, this group of older adults, 65 and older, will include about 71 million Americans. And that is going to be about 1 in 5 citizens. So that is, again, a huge population, a huge portion of our whole population. And that's going to be, if all of these people, or a large number of these people, are gambling and potentially developing gambling problems, that's going to be a lot to deal with. So something to keep in mind now, and something to keep in mind in the future as well. As usual, I do want to share some resources. So I'm going to leave this screen up for a few seconds before we finish up here. But all of these resources are great places to start if you want more information about, gambling treatment or prevention, or if you or someone is dealing with gambling problems yourself. So they're great places to reach out to. You can get a lot of information and you can get help as well. So with that, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today, and we'll see you next time with another Gambling Did You Know session.